Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from our Telesur studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with our news, checking out our headlines. The Chilean parliament debate policies for the withdrawal of funds from the pension fund system. U.S. closes 5 military bases in Afghanistan as part of an agreement signed in late February with the Taliban. Somalia's President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed addressed the 36th Assembly of the Intergovernmental Authority of Development on Tuesday and called for a resolution in South Sudan. We begin with our news. You stay with us. The Chilean parliament debate over the draft law of the withdrawal of funds from the pension fund managers or known as AFP. The initiative proposes a constitutional reform to allow AFP members to withdraw 1% from the pension fund. The project would create a collective pension fund financed by contributors from employers and the state to offset the reduction of savings, which will be administered by a public and autonomous entity. After discussions of the bill, a vote on it will be taken. If it is approved by a majority of votes, it will be discussed by the Senate. Moving on, this Tuesday, the UN Security Council met to consider the quarterly report on the implementation of the peace agreements in Colombia. The special representative and head of the UN verification mission in Colombia stressed that the killing of former FARC combatants, human rights defenders, social leaders, and Indians, Aborigines communities have been the most serious threat to the peace in this country.
La inseguridad que enfrentan excombatientes de las FARC-EP.
The insecurity faced by former FARC-EP combatants, communities, human rights defenders, and social leaders, such as Ms. Carabalí, remains our greatest concern. And unfortunately, this insecurity has continued throughout the pandemic. Despite the commitment and measures implemented by the government and state authorities, the number of former combatants killed since the signing of the peace agreement has surpassed 200, reaching 210. Without a doubt, violence against those who lay down their arms in the context of the agreement and against those who defend human rights and the rights of communities devastated by the conflict continues to be the most serious threat to the consolidation of peace in Colombia.
And the Bolivian Workers' Confederation has begun a series of protests on a national scale to voice labor demands and condemn measures promoted by the de facto government of Janine Áñez. As part of the mobilization, the Union Federation organized marches in the city of La Paz to demand the resignation of the Minister of Labor and Education. Activists are also calling on the de facto regime to adopt a health policy to contain the COVID-19 pandemic, with over 49,000 cases reported in the country and an official death toll of almost 2,000. The mobilization was joined by teachers from rural areas who are questioning the authorities' intention to implement a virtual classroom system. As we were saying, teachers also mobilized in the city of Cochabamba, where also citizens demanded a free and non-discriminatory education, free access to the internet, and the insistence of the de facto government to promote online teaching.
We are demanding the immediate dismissal of Mr. Cárdenas because he is an authoritarian minister who doesn't like to work, who does not have the will to work for the benefit of education, as he coordinates only the participation of the educators, of the educational sector. Thus we tell him liar because every day he is lying to the population, calling for the division of the educational sector, indicating that this sector demands the in-person classes during this pandemic, which is a lie. Decree 4260 establishes that the central state, the central government, must guarantee financial responsibility.
Meanwhile, in Oruro, the local neighborhood councils mobilized in support of the national protest for free access to education.
Nosotros, las juntas vecinales, estamos movilizados.
We, the neighborhood councils, are mobilized to the Central Bolivian Workers' Head and to the Central Department for Workers. We are going to remain in the streets. They are forcing us to achieve our demands. In that sense, we convene our neighbors, to all the people of Orreño. Thus, we made a call at a national level that we do not agree with all the irregularities being done using the coronavirus pandemic as a pretext, making embezzlement to our plurinational state of Bolivia.
In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro denounced this Tuesday Washington's plans to attack Venezuela, paying media to create fake news about the country's real situation.
Elliot Abrams announced last Friday that he will fund a campaign by all means, radio, TV, social networks, in a plan against Venezuela, against the Bolivarian Revolution, and this campaign against our country already started by lying about Venezuela, attacking Venezuela, trying to convey a reality that does not exist.
President Maduro announced also the arrival of a Turkish plane with biosecurity equipment and medical supplies next July 17, an effort that marks the bilateral cooperation between both nations to battle COVID-19 pandemic.
Llega un avión. It will arrive an aircraft with ventilators, PCR tests, biosafety suite and several tons of aid from Turkey. We thank to our dear sister Turkey, to President Erdogan. Thank you very much.
President Maduro updated COVID-19 numbers in the country, saying that the majority of cases are community transmitted and regretted 3 new deaths.
We have 303 cases today. 281 of community transmission, of which 93% are from Caracas and Miranda State. 56 cases of Miranda and 42 of Caracas. Also, we have 22 imported cases.
Brazil's health authorities reported that COVID-19 death in the country reaches almost 75,000. In the last 24 hours, the country recorded 1,300 new deaths by COVID-19, amounting to a total of 74,133. The spread of the novel coronavirus has extended from the worst-hit regions Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro to various regions, threatening the capacity of response to the country's public health system. The COVID-19 infection toll now stands at 1.92 million cases after reporting 41,857 new cases in a single day this Tuesday. And the Pan American Health Organization voted on Tuesday to grant subsidized access of COVID-19 vaccines to most vulnerable countries in Latin America and the Caribbean.
PAHO is also coordinated with Gavi and other partners to guarantee that the most vulnerable countries in our region receive the vaccine against COVID-19 in a subsidized manner and at an affordable price. The most vulnerable populations have been hit the hardest. In Brazil, for instance, indigenous communities along the Amazon basin are seeing incidence rates more than 5 times the national average. It is critical that we work today to ensure equal access to these life-saving tools when they become available, and that we develop a strategy for delivering them quickly and safely.
Moving on to other kind of topics, in Turin, Italy, the Juventus football team has praised the efforts carried by the Cuban medical brigade in the European country. In recognition of the Cuban brigade, the doctors and nurses who traveled around the world to assist battle against COVID-19 in over 30 nations, the famous Portuguese soccer player Cristiano Ronaldo and Juventus praised the Cuban health professionals who worked in Italy in gratitude for the work fighting COVID-19 in one of the most affected areas of the country. Time for a first break. Remember, follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and on my account at Laura P. Telesur. We'll be right back. We are back with our news. The United States closed 5 of its military bases in Afghanistan as part of an agreement signed with the Taliban in February this year. The 5 closed U.S. military bases are located in the provinces of Helmand, Uruzgan, Paktika, and Laghman. The agreement provides, among other terms, for the staggered departure of U.S. forces, which began in March, but it was suspended due to the COVID-19 crisis, according to Washington sources. There are 8,600 U.S. troops in Afghanistan and more than 14,000 who have remained in that country since the invasion and 2001 subsequent occupation. Demonstrations took place in Israel on Tuesday to demand that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu resigns. Thousands of Israelis gathered in front of Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem after over 1,400 new coronavirus cases were reported, bringing the total to over 42,000. Protesters expressed their frustration over Netanyahu's response to the pandemic, his economic policies, together with the pending cases against him for bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. Meanwhile, the Israeli authorities announced new COVID-19 restrictions, including the closure of bars, nightclubs, and gyms. Prime Minister Netanyahu is due back in court on July 19th.
We came to demonstrate, to protest, because our country was stolen, our democracy was stolen. Dictatorship rules are being passed here. He, Benjamin Netanyahu, is charged with bribe, fraud, and breach of trust. Yet nobody talks about it. It is no deal with it. He formed a government with no legitimacy.
This country is going to collapse without the possibility of salvation. The mental harm is far worse than any physical harm and any disease. Above all, the state needs to take responsibility for the people who are standing here and help them. This current situation cannot continue. The Likud is being driven by money, power, and honor. It shouldn't be like this.
An International Court of Justice has backed Qatar in a bid war with 4 of its neighbors that imposed an air blockade against the country after accusing it of backing radical Islamists in Iran.
The court, 1, unanimously rejects the appeal brought by the Kingdom of Bahrain, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates on 4 July 2018 from the decision of the Council of the International Civil Aviation Organization dated 29 June 2018.
Italian authorities have announced the extension of COVID-19 restrictions until June 31st as a move to curb the recent surge in cases.
We must not retreat 1 inch on prevention measures. If we want to learn to live with the virus until a vaccine is found and to reignite all the engines of our economy, and so that we can tackle the serious social problems we see expanding our country, in line with all this, the government intends to adopt as a result of this parliamentary session a new decree to extend the measures currently in force until July 31. We maintain the decision to quarantine for 14 days all those arriving from outside Europe and coming from non-Schengen countries as a precautionary measure to prevent the spread of the contagion. We are paying particular attention to the landings on our coastals with strict health checks and mandatory quarantine for all those who arrive. No underestimation can be allowed.
The Greek Prime Minister called on the European Union this Tuesday to take action against Turkey following the decision to convert the emblematic Hagia Sophia Museum into a mosque.
This is a decision that is painful to us as Greek Orthodox Christians and hers as citizens of the world. This is not a Greek-Turkish issue or even a Europe-Turkish issue. It is a global issue for all of mankind. Taking this backward step, Turkey has chosen to cut ties with the Western world and its values. After this insult, The question arises whether Hagia Sophia can retain its privileged status as World Heritage Site of UNESCO and whether it is fair for UNESCO to extend this enormous honor to the country that is supposed to host it.
Serbian health authorities reported 344 new COVID-19 cases on Tuesday while calling on the population not to join protests over the reimposition of measures to curb the spread of the virus.
Once again, I beg all citizens of Serbia not to do these things, not to gather in large groups, especially indoors, to keep the distance and wear masks indoors. I beg you. I will repeat that 1,000 times, so we can come out of this situation and save as many lives as possible.
And 3 Russian and several Turkish soldiers were wounded Tuesday in Syria's Idlib province when a joint military patrol was hit by an improvised explosive device. According to local media, the device blew up at 8:50 a.m. local time and the convoy patrolled the M4 highway in the southern part of a de-escalation zone. Russia and Turkey launched the joint patrols along the M4 in March, following a ceasefire agreement aimed at stopping heavy fighting in and around Idlib province, the last major stronghold of anti-government and terrorist forces in Syria. United Kingdom has bowed to U.S. pressure and approved the phased removal of Chinese telecom giant Huawei from its 5G network despite warnings of retaliation from Beijing and carrying a big cost for United Kingdom mobile providers.
So to be clear, from the end of this year, telecoms operators must not buy any 5G equipment from Huawei. And once the telecom security bill is passed, it will be illegal for them to do so.
And China has registered better than expected foreign trade performances in the first half of the year, with exports and imports both rising in June as the country's economic recovery gathers momentum.
Foreign trade of goods went down 3.2% year-on-year in the first half of this year, narrowing by 3.3 percentage points compared with the decrease for the first quarter. Foreign trade in the first half of the year was better than expected, with both imports and exports registering positive growth in June. By issuing a set of policy portfolios, the Chinese government has helped the foreign trade enterprises to prevent and control the epidemic while resuming production and work. It supports enterprises to maintain the market share and others so as to ease the burden for them. All these efforts help to stabilize the base of foreign trade in China.
And floods across central and eastern China have left more than 140 people dead or missing as major rivers and lakes have reached record levels. China has ramped up flood relief efforts in the eastern Jiangxi province as continuous rainfall has inundated farmland and buildings, causing extensive damage to property and threatening life. The Ministry of Emergency Management mobilized 1,000 professional rescuers from surrounding areas on Monday in order to support the flood relief and rescue efforts in the area of Poyang Lake. Chinese authorities have also allocated a number of relief supplies, including 5,000 blankets, towels, folding beds, and 2,000 tents to local communities. On Monday, 5,300 villagers had been evacuated. Time for another break. Just stay tuned with us. We'll be right back. We are back with our news. The President of Somalia, Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, addressed the 36th Assembly of the Inter-Governmental Authority on Development on Tuesday while vowing to undertake swift reforms in order to better face the past COVID-19 recovery. And the Inter-Governmental Authority on Development was founded in 1996 and is made up of Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, Sudan, and South Sudan, and Uganda.
The IGAD wide economic challenge is one that we must all assess and learn vital lessons from as we seek to enhance regional economic collaboration going forward. To ensure that IGAD Secretariat is well prepared for the post-COVID-19 reconstruction and recovery, we must expedite the agreed institutional reforms and restructuring of IGAD in line with our earlier agreements. This is a crucial priority that we must see through to ensure the effective operation of our organization and to strengthen it to respond to the serious regional socio-economic and security challenges ahead.
President Abdullahi also reaffirmed the organization's support and commitment to South Sudan's peace process.
Despite the challenges ahead, the government and people of South Sudan can be confident that in their hours of need, all IGAD member states stand ready to assist in whatever ways possible.
Also, Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta acknowledged political process in South Sudan peace process and on Tuesday noted that the milestone breakthroughs have been achieved between different parties.
I wish to note that in the last 5 months, we have indeed witnessed a positive political momentum in the South Sudan peace process. Though significant compromises have been made by the parties, we must admit that a number of important milestones and breakthroughs have indeed been achieved. The establishment of the executive of the new revitalized Transitional Government of National Unity and the agreement on responsibility sharing at the state level, as well as the appointment of state governors, has set the foundation for the transition period.
Kenyan health authorities have reported a record number of new COVID-19 cases in a single day this Tuesday, while calling not to stigmatize those who have been infected.
Today, 497 people have tested positive out of a sample of 4,922 samples tested within the last 24 hours. This brings our total caseload to 10,791. 480 are Kenyans, while 17 are foreigners. 318 are male and 179 are female. The youngest is a 2-year-old child, while the oldest is 89. And in terms of distribution, like we've started today, again, Nairobi continues to lead with 292 cases. We need to remember that coronavirus is a disease, and getting this disease is not a crime. And those who are infected with this disease are not criminals. And therefore, it is important we note that this virus can indeed be contracted by anyone. The high and mighty in society and everyone else in society, we've repeated over and over again, anyone can get this disease. And so it's important that we take care of each other and we avoid stigmatizing those who have the disease or those who may be affected by the disease.
And the funeral service of Ivorian Prime Minister Amadou Gon Coulibaly, who died just days after returning from France, where he underwent treatment for heart condition, took place in Abidjan this Tuesday.
Amadou, à pas lent.
Amadou, slowly your entire silhouette now moves away from us, then the cruel and finished states that your departure leaves today in our souls will be transformed tomorrow for the team of which you were the leader and national leader, of which you were so proud. To us now, as part of the vision of Côte d'Ivoire 2030, that you have encouraged to live your vision to allow Ivorians to dream ever bigger, ever more beautiful, ever higher, ever further.
I take this sad opportunity to say, dear Ivorians, dear brothers and sisters, a few months away from an important deadline, the unanimity that we observe around Amadou Gon is not this unanimity a sign of to remind our compatriots, our political leaders from all walks of life, that the peace in which we believe must be considered as a common good to be preserved. To the youth of this country, I want to say this. Remember that it was through hard work and competence that Amadou Gon Coulibaly climbed step by step to the top. Remember that he died on the job. For our country to continue its march towards the progress of prosperity in peace and stability.
And the World Health Organization reported that 20 people have died from Ebola in the Democratic Republic of the Congo since the outbreak of the disease on June 1st. The WHO detailed on its latest report that the nation currently has 49 cases, of which 46 have been confirmed in lab tests, while there are likely cases of infection and 11 have overcome the highly contagious disease. This is the 9th time that the Democratic Republic of the Congo is facing an Ebola outbreak. The last time was during the second quarter of 2018 when 54 cases were registered and 33 people died and 21 survived the disease. With this information, we come to the end of this news brief. Of course, you can find this and more on our website, TelesurEnglish.net, where you can read opinion articles, watch special interviews, and update yourself about the latest information regarding COVID-19 throughout the world. Do you continue with us with Telesur, always together, connecting our global thousands. Until next time, thank you for watching.